Happy Tuesday, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the You Thrive Everyday Show. And I am your host, AP, America's favorite life coach, owner, and founder of You Thrive Coaching. Sorry, guys. And the You Thrive movement. I am so thankful that you guys are here with us today. Today we have another wonderful interview. Okay, and they're all special. All the interviews are special, but this one is very, 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 very special. Okay, because my friend is all the way in Australia. Okay, she is in Australia and she's gonna kick some game for us Americans. Okay. It's a wonderful story, and I'm excited. And I want to thank everybody for their patience with these shows because we are just starting out and we have been getting great responses too. And I appreciate you guys. And once again, I want to make it very, very clear that these people are business professionals. Okay. But when they're doing the interview with me, okay, I'm AP. I'm everybody's home girl. So we are chilling, we are relaxed, everybody's comfortable in their own skin, okay? So I just want to make that very, very, very clear that we are business professionals, but we are kicking it right now, okay? So I would like to introduce Coach T. Fitness with a T is her business from Melbourne, Australia. Say hello, girl. Say hello.
Hi, AP. Good to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So now tell everybody where you're from, where you're born and raised, and where you're at now.
Okay, so my full name is Teurai. I'm from Zimbabwe originally. So I was born in Zimbabwe and raised in Zimbabwe until the age of 13. I'm nearly 40 now. I'm going to be 40 in August. And
Girl,
now
stop telling them lies.
I know. 40 is the new 20, you know.
It is. It really is.
It really is. So yes, so now I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, but I've lived in a few countries around the world as well.
Oh, where else have you lived?
When I left Zimbabwe, I lived in Germany. So I left Zimbabwe when I was 13 because my father became an ambassador. So we went with my mom to Germany and we lived there for 6 years. And then I did my last 2 years of high school in London. And then I stayed in London and my parents went back home to Zimbabwe and I did my university there. I stayed in England for 10 years and then I moved to Australia in 2008. So I've been in Australia for 12 years.
Oh, wow. So, I mean,
Yeah.
just real quick, just because, you're our first guest that has been to this, to all these different countries. So kind of tell us what do you feel is the difference in each place? What was like
In each
major
place.
differences?
Wow, that's a very good question. No one's asked me that before. I think with Germany, the biggest difference was that when I went to Germany, everyone had this perception of German people and Germany being a really racist place. But when I got there, my experience was the opposite. I found people to be really friendly and really welcoming. The people who asked questions about where I was, it was more like curiosity. So it really sort of opened my mind that you don't have to listen to people's perspectives or the way that they put different countries in a box until you actually go there and experience the people yourself and then form your own opinion, so to speak.
Exactly.
And then and then with Australia, I think it was the same thing. I find Australians to be really friendly and open, but I love how very similar it is to Africa, like in terms of the nature, the way the landscape is. It's very warm as well when it's summer. Well, in Melbourne, it's cold most of the time. But when I first moved to Australia, I was living in a place called Cairns, which is the top north of Australia, and it was warm every day. It was like being at home. So I love it. I love Australia.
So, as far as you being a Black woman in these areas, have you
Yes.
experienced any racism?
Yes, I have. I think it's been, like when I experienced a lot of racism more I don't know whether you'd call it racism, but it was curiosity that was ignorant curiosity. So, for example, when I first got to Australia, in Cairns, where I was living, it was, not a lot of Black people, whereas in Melbourne, there's a lot of different cultures. So I haven't experienced outright racism. Some of it is just overt, if that makes sense. But in Cairns, for example, I was studying, and I was working in a music shop. And I remember some people used to come in and say, "Oh, we heard that there's an African lady who works in here, and we came in to have a look at you." And I think, how can you do that? Like, I'm not an animal in a zoo. I'm a person. How can you come from your house to come and have a look at me? You're not even here to buy the products in the store. You're here to have a look at me. So that was really confronting.
Yes.
Yeah, and it didn't feel good, obviously.
But you know what? When you started off and you said ignorant curiosity, that was the perfect example of it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of like we don't see a lot of Africans. Let's go check her out, like an exhibit. Like, let's go check it out.
Exactly. And I was like, hey, this is not cool.
Right. That's
Yeah,
very
so
interesting.
it's interesting because sometimes you experience racism, but it's like, it's not that outright, hey, you're Black, I don't like you, but it's like someone who's curious, but the way that they're going about it is so wrong and so off. And
Right.
you're like, hey, that's not okay. But they don't even know that they're doing it. It's weird. I don't know how to explain that.
I understand. Okay. So like I said, so take me through your childhood a little bit. So did you grow up in the house with both of your parents, your biological, and if so, were they your biological parents, siblings? Let me know.
So I grew up with my biological parents, and I grew up with my older sister. My older sister, Eden, lives in Phoenix, Arizona, actually. And then I also grew up with my brother. My brother's my half sibling. So his mom passed away before my dad married my mom, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the same father, different mothers.
Okay. And so kind of steer me through your childhood. What's going on with T as a kid? Is T confident like she is now? Bodacious personality? Let me know. Who was T?
No way. I was not confident then. I was so shy and quiet, and I still have aspects of that in me. But I think one of the main things was that culturally and also just within the household, I wasn't able to express myself creatively and just to express my feelings. So it was very much, be seen but not heard. Children are seen and not heard. That was the way that I grew up, and it was more about excelling at academics or at school. So even if I was upset about things, my dad wouldn't like it when I said, I'm upset about this. It just wasn't something that we talked about, even within the culture as well. You're just supposed to be strong. You're not supposed to be crying or say you're scared about something. So I was just like, all in a shell, really. It was only as I got to adulthood that I learned how to express myself and to be free as well within.
So how were you kind of shut down?
How was I shut down? I think it was more verbal, as in, you know, you don't say certain things, or if you're upset, no one really takes that time to listen to you. But I also think with my parents, by the time my dad passed away, he was 73. So they were from the older generation. And my mom passed away when she was in her 60s. So the way they grew up was really like traditional in the African traditional culture. You're seen and not heard. You don't express your feelings. You don't talk about mental health. All those kind of things are stigmas. It's only now that, we're starting to open up a bit more. And maybe that's the same in other cultures around the world.
Right. And I was going to say that. So, as far as your culture is concerned, was it the fact that you were a woman and were told that? Or was it just in your house? Like it was kids, period. Like we don't talk about feelings and stuff. It's just literally about
Ah.
academics.
I think it was the fact that I was a woman was probably involved too, because I think my brother was more creative and he was more able to express himself and didn't get so much, he wasn't told, hey, don't say that or whatever. He would do, I found that he had a lot more freedom than
Right.
we did. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's definitely in the mix.
Okay. So take me to a period when things are a little troublesome for you, because now you're quiet, you're shy. Usually that comes with low confidence. So tell me what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, so low confidence, low self-esteem. And then I moved to Germany. So you can imagine as a 13-year-old, you've grown up in a particular place with, you know your friends and your extended family, like playing with my cousins and all that. And then all of a sudden we're going to this new country. And to me, I didn't know what that meant as a child. I just knew we were going somewhere, but I don't think I really understood that I was going to this place where most of the people don't look like me, they don't talk like me, and it was just like, okay, we're going. And I don't feel like I got a good explanation of what was happening. So I think relocating was hard. It changed something in me in that I became even less confident, because when I got to the new place, it was so overwhelming to be different. And for people to be looking at me like, oh my gosh, you're dark. And I'll think, why are they looking at me? It was just so much as a young girl. So that
Oh,
made me, more shy. So it's not like I was walking around depressed or anything,
right, 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 right.
but inside I just felt like I just didn't understand who I was or what was happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you're in new territory where people do not look like you.
Yes, they
And
don't,
then
and they're asking where are you from and da 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 da, and you're hearing German everywhere, and you're like, oh my God, how am I even gonna get to understand
were
what's
you in
happening?
a community where they were speaking English, or you just like basically had to hop in and kind of learn the language?
I was in a community that was speaking English, so that was good in that there was the diplomatic service. People who were working in the diplomatic service were around me. So the people who worked in the embassy, and then people from other embassies or other countries. So we'd all be together. And then also the school I went to was an international school, so we spoke English in school. But then outside of school, if you're walking in the city or if you're going, just a normal family day, everywhere it's just German. TV is all in German. They're very much about keeping their language. So I learned German in school, and I also did extra lessons of German, but I wasn't as good. I'm not good with learning languages, but my
Right.
sister's good with languages, so she picked it up really quickly.
So, I mean, explain to me how this goes, right? Because your father was like pretty important.
Yeah, he was like,
So explain what he did and then kind of explain like your lifestyle a little bit, because I mean, not people, I mean, who else lives like that?
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Explaining the lifestyle or what he did. Wow, he did, I guess for him, his main role was to represent Zimbabwe in Germany. So I guess like in inverted commas, a president to the country, but in another country. So he had a lot of things that he did in terms of uh, what is it, liaising or interacting with other people in German politics as well. So, most of the time, maybe I'd see different politicians at our house. We'd have different functions as well. So my mom, as an ambassador's wife, had to act in a certain way and learn how to entertain politicians and very important people who would come to our house. So that was interesting because I would just be watching, or sometimes I'd have to come, we'd be introduced as the children. Hey, say hi to Minister so and so. And there was a particular way that we had to behave. So it was almost like that message of be seen and not heard was then ingrained even more. Like you behave in a certain way, you dress in a certain way, you have to be, prim and proper, of course. You can't just be like running amok. You can't just
Yes.
come up. into the lounge wearing your ripped jeans. You have to be dressed appropriately. So that was interesting. I just got used to it, I think.
I was gonna ask, did you feel the pressure, or was it kind of like a normalcy to you because you were so young?
Yeah, I did feel the pressure when we had functions, but other than that, I think I just got used to it. I really did. Yeah. It's interesting when I look back now. I got used to it, but sometimes I would feel resentful, like I would just want to be free. I would just want to be able to run through the house like, "Ah," just to be free
Right.
and express myself, but I couldn't do that.
And so, what kind of extracurricular activities did you guys have as children? I mean,
Children, I know as kids, right? You're thinking, what kind of it was like, extracurricular activities did I do? When I was in Zimbabwe, I did a lot of sports, which was good because I was really good at sports, which explains, what I do now in terms of fitness. And then when I got to Germany, because there wasn't so much free there wasn't so much outdoor, there weren't a lot of outdoor activities like how they were in Zimbabwe because it was cold and we
right.
lived in a city that was very, built up. So there weren't many parks or anything like that. So in Germany, I used to do things like typing classes. I learned how to type. So I could type so quickly. It was more academics, extra lessons for German. I didn't do any sports besides within school, school activities. I read a lot. I loved reading anyway, so it wasn't like something taxing. I loved music as well, so I was always listening to music and reading.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, as a kid, I mean, were you guys experimenting with drugs, alcohol? I mean, what were you guys
Oh,
doing?
yes, experimenting with alcohol, I would say for myself. By the time I got to Germany, my sister, because my sister is 7 years older than me, so by the time I got to Germany, my sister was 19. So she then went to America. So she started off in Los Angeles. So she was in uh, Occidental College or somewhere like that, in California anyway. So I didn't see her that much, only when she came to Germany for holidays. So for myself as a teen, the only one in the house, because by that time my brother was older too, and he was out doing his thing, uni and all that. I used to go out, so parties. I used to sneak out as well to go to parties because my dad didn't allow me to go to clubs or anything like that. So I used to sneak out and off I'd go, and I'd come
So,
back
did
home
you
and no one
guys
would
have
know.
like security stuff? Like, how were you?
Um, we had cameras, but I knew how to, how to do my thing.
I know
I
that's
knew where
right.
they were. I knew what to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so as a teenager, so take me through high school at this point. What's going on in high school?
High school. Oh gosh, high school it was
Dating,
fun.
like who are you? What are
Dating.
you doing? How are you getting in trouble? Because I knew you're not like the angel. What was going on? Give me the dirt, girl. Give me the dirt.
The dirt. I think the dirt for me was sneaking out, going to clubs, drinking alcohol, dating guys, at school, finding ways to meet them after school, lying to my parents that I'm going to, I don't know, some girl's place and then going to spend time with my boyfriends.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Like give us free.
Yes, yes. I had to find a way to have fun because yeah, my dad was super strict. He was not having it. He was not having none of that mess. He was not hearing anything about boys or boyfriends. Nah, it was school and that's it. And don't tell
So,
me how you feel. Just
oh,
focus on your books.
okay. So
Yeah.
how was it? So was he also like dictating like what he wanted you to do with your life? Because he sounds like he was like on it,
Yeah, he
like
was, he was very strict.
militant
Yeah, I
with you.
think in a way, yes. I think he tried not to make it like he was dictating what we should do, but he still did. Because I remember even when I was choosing, and I was very blessed because I was able to even choose what
Mm.
course I wanted to do in college. He was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to be a pilot." He's like, no, you can't be a pilot because what if when you get married, you're going to be traveling, you can't leave your husband at home. So that's a very traditional way of thinking in my culture, that the woman stays at home and cooks and cleans and looks after her husband, which is probably the same in other cultures. But he was like, no, you can't do that. So I was like, okay, I want to work in a hotel. I want to do hospitality. He was like, no, you can't do that. And then I ended up choosing law because I know that when he grew up, in the times that he grew up, the British was still in charge of Zimbabwe, and Black people couldn't go to college or university. They couldn't go to certain places, so there was segregation. So he'd always wanted to be a lawyer, but he couldn't growing up in the colonial times. So I just thought, okay, I'll be a lawyer and I'll follow his dream and I'll make him happy. Because if you think even of my family structure, the way that my dad was, and I know that he probably meant well, of course, as all parents do, he was just doing what he knew. That's all he knew. He didn't know any different or any better in inverted commas. Um, so you can imagine that for me, it was always about getting the approval of my dad. So I was constantly seeking approval in whatever ways until I got to adulthood and learned about how to let go of not trying to prove things to a parent. So even in my relationships, I chose men who were similar to my dad because there was still that part of me that wanted to prove to him that I could be good or that I could be loved, because I wasn't able to express myself emotionally. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes
It's pretty
total sense.
deep. It's
That
deep.
makes total
I've had
sense.
to do a lot of work to actually understand that link.
And so, how old do you think you were before you started to understand that?
Oh gosh, not very old. I mean, very old, not old, but it was so recent. I think it was
Okay.
after I separated from my husband. I'm going through a divorce now. I'm going to be divorced in August. Woohoo! Like fully,
Right.
it's going to be finalized. But I think the journey really started 2017. So not very long
Not too long
ago.
ago. Okay. So we're we're thinking about being a lawyer at this point. So did you decide this while still in high school, or when did
Yeah,
that
so
come
I
up?
was still in high school, like the last 2 years of my high school. I decided that, yeah, I'll go and do law, I'll make lots of money, and I'll be happy. End of story. That's what I thought then when I
Mm-hmm.
was choosing. And I was always good with academics, like I was always top of the class, on a roll. And it's only now that I look back that I think, wow, I was always top of the class in a foreign country where, it wasn't easy, being from Zimbabwe. People had a lot of prejudices as well. So I think I worked even harder because of that, because I wanted to show people that I'm smart too, just because
Right.
I'm African. Because sometimes people had prejudices about Africans and how intelligent they were and things like that. So it's like I was always trying to prove that I'm good.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
So how old were you when you met your husband?
I met my husband, how old was I? I was 35. Yeah, I had to go back in time in my
So
head. So
how was your dating life before that? Because 35 is,
yeah, I know.
a
Um,
little older.
I wanted to explain before that. So when I was in the UK, in England, I met, I had another partner, and we dated for a long time. His name is, well, I'm not going to say his name, but anyway, we dated for, better not say his name, anonymous, oopsie. So we dated for a long time, for 8 years. So we actually moved together from the UK to Australia, and we lived together here in Australia. Then we broke up while we were in Australia. So he's one of, I think, one of yeah, um, besides my husband, he's also one of those key people in my dating life that there's no way I can leave him out of the picture because we were together for so long.
And so why didn't you guys get married?
Because there was infidelity from his side when we got to Australia. So yeah, we tried to work it out, but it just didn't work out. in the end. Yeah.
Infidelity. What else was going on?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. When I look back, I see that, there's probably uh parts that we both played. But I also think that with some of the things that I do creatively, it takes a certain type of man to accept and understand my work as well, and to support it. So I think that while he still supported the dreams that I had, because back then I was still like, I want to do this and I want to have a fitness business and I want to model, and it was still like dreams. And I think sometimes he used to think she's just going on, about these silly dreams.
But you were still in school, right, to be a lawyer while you
I
had
was,
all
I
these
was
ambitions.
still, yeah, I was still in uni to be a lawyer, but I realized as I was studying law that I didn't enjoy it. I was just like, okay, I'll just keep doing it, but I still had all these other dreams. And as I got older, I started to
Okay,
realize
why
that,
were you enjoying the law?
it was just not me. It
Okay.
just, yeah, I loved the writing part of it. I loved the reading because that's something I'd always done as a young girl. But there was just something that wasn't clicking. And I left, I finished my uni. I did a master's in law as well. And all that time, I just kept thinking, I'll get to like it. I'll get to like it. And I actually practiced as a lawyer and I kept saying to myself, I'll get to like it. I'll get to like it. Until I got to a point where I was depressed and I thought, I've been doing this for years and I'm miserable. I
What
can't
kind of
live my
lawyer
life.
were you?
I did criminal, family, and property law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those three. And I also tried human rights law as well. So I did business law. So I went into a few different areas to see that I thought maybe I need to try a different type of law before I stop. So I tried that, but still.
Yeah.
And I still have friends who are lawyers to this day and they love it. But the thing is for me, I live in the way that I think I've only got one life. Why should I live it being miserable? I'm just not going to accept that for myself.
So how long did it take you to finally decide that like being a lawyer is not it for me? It's not.
Oh my God, because I did 3 years study, then I did another year, then I did my master's for 2 years. That's a long time. Then I practiced, then I moved to Australia, and I was still doing law in Australia.
Oh.
All that time. So it was only by the time I got to 30 that I decided, right, I'm literally stopping. I'm not doing this anymore. And then I started doing evening classes, doing my fitness training. So I would go to work, just normal corporate work, and then at night I'd go and do my studies for fitness.
Your passion. Okay,
Yeah,
and so your guy
absolutely.
at this point is kind of like she is all over the place. So he's all over the place, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, by that time we had actually broken up.
Hmm.
So by the time I decided to do the fitness, we'd broken up, and we were still kind of dating. Like we'd hook up, then we wouldn't, then we'd say, okay, let's be together. Then something would happen, and then I'd find out he's still seeing other girls, and it was just a hot mess. And I was a hot mess.
Why were you a
So
hot mess, T?
I was a hot mess because I was heartbroken and I wanted my man back. And he was like, the stable man in my life that I always knew. And I had these big dreams of us getting married and living happily ever after. And at the same time, I think I just didn't understand my worth. I didn't understand that I didn't deserve to be treated like that and that I could
How are
move
you
on.
being treated?
So first of all, someone cheating on you ain't good, right? Someone I think we weren't compatible in that, he was a lovely guy, don't get me wrong. So I'm not saying that his actions then make him a bad person because, I can't speak for him and I'm not bagging him. But I think we weren't compatible in that our mind space maybe was just, we were in different spaces.
I got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now we have broken up and we are single and we are out here.
Yeah.
What's going on?
We are out here partying like There ain't no tomorrow. I was out partying, 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 drinking, doing all those external things that I thought would help, the inside. So that's what I was doing. I was doing my hustle, setting up my fitness business, but also partying because there was still that hole, I suppose, that I was trying to fill. So that's what I did. I used to party like crazy. I don't anymore, but I had my fill from back then.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And it gets
Oh, yes.
old. After so many years, it does. It gets
Mhm.
old. And
It gets old as.
it's draining. Look,
It's draining. Like I still like a good party now and again, but not as much as I used to back then. No.
I know, girl. And then like I was telling you, my body just it can't handle it. Like I party for a day, I need 2 days to recoup, like it's not
I
the same
know,
anymore.
crazy. Or a week. Huh, I'd need a week.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're partying. So how do we meet the husband?
Aha. So how do I meet the husband? So I met the husband on a dating site, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes, really. So I met on there. It was my cousin was like, "You need to go on a dating site. You need to go." And I was like, "No, I don't want to go on a dating site." And she kept, just pushing me. Then I thought, why not? It might be fun. And then I met him the first week that I joined the dating site. And we started talking. And then he was like, "Oh, I want to take you out on a date." So we met up. And then, yeah, then we just started dating from there. So we dated for about a year, yeah, just a little bit over a year. And then we started talking marriage.
Mm. So take
Mm.
me through that journey.
Ah, okay. We're going there. So that journey, so we started talking marriage, and he's a white Australian, and he wanted to do the cultural marriage, like my cultural marriage as well. So in my culture, this will probably sound wrong to people who don't understand this or have never heard of this, but in my culture, they do what's called kurora, and kurora means that the man goes to the woman's family, and then he pays a certain amount of money to have the lady as his wife, or he'll give things like cows that are given to the village of the dad, etc.,
Yeah,
etc.
dowry, right?
Yeah, like a
Mhm.
dowry. Yeah, so that's what we did. So we organized that, and then we went back to Zimbabwe together and did the dowry. My dad was still alive then. That was 2016, no, 2015. So we did that, and then we came back to Australia. We lived together, and then we got married, like the legal, Western marriage, and we got married in the Philippines. So it was just the two of us, and that was 2016, May of 2016.
Okay. So
Hmm.
we're at a place where, father was kind of controlling a little bit. You couldn't really voice how you're feeling if you're having a bad day or somebody made you mad. That wasn't things that you talked to your father about, right?
No, I could talk to my mom about it. My mom was there, like emotionally 100%, but not my dad. And
So
that
we're
was just
going,
normal too for our culture. Like you don't go to your dad to talk about your emotions in the African culture, like a traditional African culture.
so how do you feel that played a role as far as the suppression of your character, of your voice, of who you were?
That's a good question. I think it played quite a role in that. Um, yeah. So I think obviously the way I'd grown up, not being able to express myself, then played out in my relationships. Because even if I thought something wasn't right, it would take me a long time to actually say, "Hey, you know what? I don't like A, B, C, D." I'd have to think about it, or sometimes I'd think maybe it's my fault, maybe something I'm doing is wrong, when I could just say, you know, don't do A, B, and C. And I think the kind of men I attracted were men who then didn't allow me to express myself, or even if they did, they didn't like it. They didn't like that I was saying I don't like ABC. So it was just
Exactly.
like a pot waiting to boil over.
Exactly. Okay,
Mm.
so take me through this husbandry. We're married now.
We're
We back
married
from the
now.
Philippines. What's going on?
We're back from the Philippines. So everything was all good before the Philippines, right? But when we got to the Philippines and we were getting married, do you know what? When I walked down the aisle, and I haven't said this publicly yet, but when I was walking down the aisle, I was like, beep, that's a swear word. This is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm making a big mistake. I knew just as I started walking down the aisle. And I was like, there was no one around me because it was just the two of us. And I was like, what do I do? And I just kept walking and I just got married. But I knew in my heart it was not the right decision.
Why
I
do
knew
you
I was
think you
making a mistake.
felt that way? Was it just your intuition at the time, or is this something
Yeah.
that had been kind of playing in the background of your mind? Like,
It had been playing in the background of my mind from when I got to the Philippines. Not a little bit before. I'd say probably from the time that I left Zimbabwe after the dowry thing. Everything was all good then. I didn't have any doubts. And then as soon as we got back to Australia and moved in together, there was just something in my spirit that was just saying things are not gonna go well. I didn't have any evidence of it. And I
exactly.
remember texting my friend, my close friend here in Melbourne, saying, I think I'm making a mistake, but I'm just gonna go through with it. And yeah, I just did because I was like, well, what do I do now?
So you didn't want to stand them up at the altar, honey. So you just
No,
walked down it.
I just walked on. I was like, help.
Okay, so you walk down the aisle, you really feel like fuck on the
Yeah,
inside. What am I
exactly.
doing? And
Yeah.
then so you say your I do, and how is
Mm-hmm.
that night, the honeymoon night? Like, are you like looking at him like shit? Or is it like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. In my mind, I was happy, but it was like, I've been happy at doing other things. Like I've had more joy, like, I don't know, doing something, achieving something in my business than I did the night of my honeymoon. That says a lot. I was
right,
happy, but I wasn't like happy, happy. And I knew that that was a problem. The fact that I wasn't really happy. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm here, but I wish I was somewhere else.
right.
Real. Yeah. And then I just thought, I went back to that, I suppose, childhood thinking, oh, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not grateful enough. I'm spoiled. I'm this. It was, I was turning it back on me instead of just listening to my gut.
Okay, so that was the gut. The gut said something. Okay, so we come
Hmm.
back from the Philippines. What's going on?
Philippines, get back to Australia, and things were just off. Um, I think that we didn't have a connection. I felt like, yeah, things were just off. And, over the course of our relationship, and I'm not saying that, maybe there were things that I did as well. I'm not saying that it's all him because I don't think that that's a good way to come across when you're talking about a relationship because there's two of you, and also because that person is not there to speak for themselves. But from my perspective, there were things that had started happening even as we were dating. So things that he would tell me about myself that started escalating, where he'd start adding more and more negative things about myself. So talking about, for example, the way that I looked in a negative way, the way that I talked in a negative way, like saying things like, you're not good in a social situation. Um, you need to speak up more, as in he'd say my voice is too soft. Things like that, where you think, wait a minute, my partner shouldn't be saying those things to me. But I just let it go because I would justify it. And I started to believe it as well. He would just
Yeah,
slip
when
it
you
in,
hear something over and over again, it's kind of like the brainwash, it's kind of like slowly
Mhm.
hypnotizing you to like, oh, well, maybe I am not expressive enough, or maybe I am too quiet, and then all of a sudden you start to be uncomfortable. So then that's the person that you actually become, is the person that they're accusing you of being.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think as well, on top of that, I had moved from Melbourne. So Melbourne's a very big city. And I'd moved from Melbourne to where he lives, and he lives more in the country part of Australia. So it was a small town. So you can imagine I'm now out of my usual zone. I've shut up my fitness to a T business here in Melbourne, which was doing well, and moved to a small place, and I was like starting from scratch. So it was just like I only had him, and that town, it's like a town where there are not many Black people. There's not many different cultures in there. So it felt very isolating. And my friends, weren't coming because it's far. They have to plan if they need to come there.
And so was his job primarily there? Like, why didn't you guys like stay in Melbourne?
Yeah, his job was primarily there. And before we got married, we had this big discussion for a long time about what should I do? Should he move? Should I move? Da 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 da. And it
Right.
just worked out better financially for me to move there. And because for my business, that's when I was starting my online coaching. So when I met my husband, I was doing one-on-one in a gym. So I was working in a really busy gym, and I'd really built up my business and my clientele. But I'd started thinking about transitioning to the online space. So I just thought, okay, if I move to this town, I can now focus on my online business and grow that. Yeah. So that's how I started my online business to what it is now.
And so was that like a culture shock for your family when you just completely quit law and was like, I am a fitness coach and this is what I'm gonna do?
Yes, it was. It was massive. They thought I was freaking crazy. Like, what the fuck are you doing? How can you leave law? Like, imagine if, the society, anyone in society would say, how can you leave law for fitness? So imagine your family, they'll be like, what? Crazy. But I was so strong, and that's the thing. Like, even though I've got a soft voice, or I'm quite a soft character, I have such a strength within me. When I'm determined to do something, I do it. Even leaving these relationships, even, leaving my husband and recognizing that it became an emotionally abusive and dangerous relationship, being able to leave. There's so many women who can't do that. There's so many people who can't leave professions that they're miserable in because they just can't do it. So that makes me see how strong I am. Maybe I get that
And
from my
it
dad a
did.
little
It
bit
took
too.
you a while to leave, like
Yeah, it did. It took
10
me
years
probably,
plus. I mean,
yeah,
with
10
a
years plus.
lawyer.
Yes, true. Yeah, it took a while. Took
Okay,
a
so
while.
now back to the husband. When did we start to get to the point to where it was like, okay, this is not cool. Like, I think I need to break free. What was going on?
I think for me, it was just the fact that I was so unhappy with him. Like, I didn't see how we connected. We didn't have much to say to each other. The negative comments had increased so much that I began to feel resentful, and I began to get depressed as well. Um, and then because I began to get I became depressed. He also used that. So you'd say, you're so miserable, you're so this, you're so that. But I'll be thinking, something is not right about the way you're treating me and the things that you're saying. He became very distant. Yeah, there was a lot going on there. There's some things I think I'm not yet ready to go to now, as in the actual detail. But yeah, it just became a really terrible situation where I became really depressed. And then my family and my friends started noticing that something was off and said, T, something's going on. And even when I said some of the things that he would say, they would say, that's not okay, until I began to listen more and more to what they were telling me.
Mm. So there was verbal abuse.
And emotional. So, that manipulation. Yeah, manipulation, I would say emotional manipulation and verbal abuse.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. And then, so what was the final straw with that?
I think the final straw was when I started picking up the phone and calling suicide hotlines, like saying I'm like wanting to kill myself, and telling my sister as well in the States that I was feeling suicidal. And at that time, that was the period of 2016 to about late 2017. And for those people who followed me on social media for years, they will know. I mean, probably no one really noticed, but those were the years where I was just quiet. I wasn't on social media. My business was just a lull. It's not like how it is now where you see me constantly posting things. It was just dead. I took a lot of people off my Facebook. I just wanted to hide. I was just so depressed. There were so many days that I would just spend in bed, just wanting to die, like literally in bed, covers just in there. And then
Hmm.
it just got to that point where I thought, my husband's in the other room. I'm calling a suicide hotline. This is not cool. I need to leave. And I was scared to leave because I thought, where am I going to go? By that point, I didn't have much money because I'd shut up my business. I didn't even have motivation to work, even though I knew that, I'm a resourceful person. But I just lost myself, couldn't do anything. So I thought, where am I even going to go? You know?
Right. And so you guys were still like in that like rural, like country area at the time. So you
Still in the
were away
rural
from.
country area.
And so
Away.
how far was that from Melbourne?
That was 3 hours drive from Melbourne. So it
Okay.
wasn't that far, but I just thought, how am I gonna get to Melbourne and then, find somewhere to stay? I don't have much money. I just, and I suppose because I was so depressed, I couldn't take those action steps that somebody who's not depressed would take, you know? It was like my brain just shut down.
So you're calling suicide hotline. What was the thing that was just like, I don't want to die. Like, I
Uh-huh.
kind of want to live this life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think for me it was thinking, you know what, if I do die, then what does it serve? What does it help? And I really thought that if I killed myself, you wouldn't care anyway. So it was like, well, what's the point? I might as well just live. And I would always like look back at what I had done before or how I was before. And I'll think, but I was like this and I used to do this and this is me. This is not me as I am now. I want to go back to this person, this T. So I think that's what it was, wanting to go back to who I knew I was. It was just trying to dig her out of all that mess.
And so, how did you even start the process? How did you even get out of bed?
Oh, I'll give all credit to my sister. My sister really supported me, like those times I would speak to her daily. So we'd speak on Facebook Messenger, and she's got two kids. So, a lot of credit to her too for just being there for me. But what she did was she would help with practical things like saying, call this place, or once she booked me an Airbnb place she's in, by that time she was in Phoenix, but she booked me an Airbnb place in that small town, for me to just go away for a few days and just think. She said, T, just get out of that space and just go somewhere and just think, at least think about what's going on. I just feel like you're not going to be able to process stuff when you're in that negative space. So I did that. And I went away for a few days and didn't hear from my husband. He didn't care where I
I
was.
was
He was
gonna
just like,
say he
what?
allowed you to go.
Yes, and he didn't even check to see where I was or anything. That's a big sign. He didn't care,
Yeah,
or
he
what,
didn't
I
check
don't know
out.
what was going on in his mind, but he didn't give a fuck, right?
Right, right.
So I ended up going back anyway to the house, after thinking. And the great thing about being at that Airbnb, and I think this was all meant to be, um, the great thing about being at that Airbnb was that the lady who owned the place, she was just so beautiful, and we started having a really good friendship. We stayed in touch even after I left the Airbnb. And there was a time when I was just sitting at home thinking, fuck, where am I going to go? Like, where am I? If I leave, where can I start? And then she sent me a text message saying she had some cats. So she said, I'm going away for 3 weeks and I need someone to look after my cats. How about you come over and stay and stay for 3 weeks for free and, look after my house and da da da. Da. Then I was like, right, that's my get out card.
The universe is so perfect like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're there
So
for 3 weeks and then
yeah, I was there for 3 weeks and then I managed to sort out where to go from there. So what I did was I stayed there for 3 weeks. I went back to the house and then I started packing up my stuff. So at that point, because my husband traveled a lot, traveled a lot. So he went away to Asia on a trip, business trip, and that's when I told him that, I'm leaving. This is not working. And he was like, yeah, yeah.
peace,
Yeah,
sayonara.
like please. Yeah. And I think part of when I talk about things like emotional abuse, part of emotional abuse can also be silent treatment. So sometimes when I would say things like, hey, I don't like this, he just wouldn't talk to me for days. So it's like a prisoner, you're in a space with someone and they're not talking to you. It's actually torture. It's very torturous to be in that situation.
Yeah,
And and I'd say, hey, let's just talk. Nothing, silence. So it was just these constant techniques that just ended up beating me down. I just couldn't take it. So yeah, so I left. And then I found a place to rent out. So I was renting a place and then I was still working in that small town. And I also got referred to the domestic violence center. So I went there so that they could try and help me with work and bits and pieces. But while I was there, they also said, hey, why don't you come and do this course just so you can understand a little bit more about abuse? Because I think for me, the hardest thing was that he never hit me, but I was emotionally abused. And at that time, I didn't understand what emotional abuse was. So when I did this course, I got to understand that I was actually going through emotional abuse. And I also went through financial abuse as well. So those are just as harmful as physical abuse, if not more, because it's harder for a woman to prove, or a man to prove emotional abuse as opposed to physical abuse.
wow. Yes. And
Mm.
people live in that every day. And because they are not
Yeah.
physically being abused, then it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing. Even the verbal abuse, like
Yeah.
that is a lot.
Exactly. And some people just take it and they think, well, what am I going to say? So even for me, when I told, family or even tell other people, they're like, what? It's almost like you have to say, no, but then he said this and he did this. And I got to a point where I realized that I don't have to explain it. I know what I went through. And if someone doesn't get it, too bad. At least
Yeah.
I'm free and I'm happy.
Yes. Okay. So we take the class and we renting out a spot now. You have a place to stay. What's
Yeah.
going on now?
So I'm at this place to stay, but mentally, emotionally, I'm in a bad place. I was a hot mess. Because even though I had left, it was hard to leave. It was hard to understand that my marriage was over and that I was starting separation. It was hard to understand that I'd been through emotional abuse. And through all this time, I never heard from him. I never heard from my husband again until it was probably 2 years that I never heard from him. From that time that I left up until we started the divorce proceedings. So a lot of people would say to me, have you heard from I'm not going to say his name. Have you heard from so and so? Have you heard from, to the point where I said, guys, he's not going to get in touch with me. So just stop asking. So that was hard too. It was hurtful.
Yeah, you feel rejected.
Of course. And I just had to start, I had to start from scratch. So I had nothing because I allowed my financial situation, or that situation, to be all controlled by him. And there was a lot of financial abuse there as well. So already it was like I was building myself back up again. And I felt like crap.
Yeah.
Absolute crap. I was like, oh my God, where do I start? And then the same year that I separated, my dad passed away. So I was dealing with my dad passing away, and I was dealing with separation. So it was just crazy.
Right. So life was like kicking your ass at that moment.
It
So
was kicking my ass, girl. It was crazy. So even when I went for my dad's funeral, I hadn't separated from my husband then, but he went off on holiday to Asia. He went on holiday. So we went to the airport together. I got on the plane to go to dad's funeral, and he went on holiday because he said he needed a break. And my dad had just died. So I don't know. That was crazy. So when I got to the funeral, everyone was like, "Where's so and so?" I'm like, "Oh, he had to go for a business trip." I just lied. So it was horrific. I don't even know how I got through my dad's funeral. I was not there. I was just crazy. I was literally going crazy.
yeah, they call that disassociation, where you
Mm-hmm.
literally just like check out.
Yep.
Like,
So they're like, "See ya."
okay, so how do we slowly start to take care of ourselves? How do we slowly start to heal? I mean, that's a big deal.
Uh-huh.
Your
It's a
father
massive
and your
deal.
lover at the, basically at the same time. Like that's your world.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. It was really tough. What did I do? I started counseling. So slowly, bit by bit, started picking up the pieces. And then I also had to transition from that town to Melbourne. So I started looking at ways I could, start to come back. So started saving money so I could move back to Melbourne and get a place to stay and then look for another job. So I slowly started getting back up. And then I moved to Melbourne after about 3 months of staying in that town. And even when I was in that town, it was hard because when I'd go to work, I think, oh my God, is he, maybe he can see me, but he's not talking to me. It was almost like I had a bit of fear as well. But anyway, I moved to Melbourne, and I was sharing a place, a flat or a unit, whatever you call it, like an apartment. You call it an apartment in America, an apartment with another girl. And then I was working at this gym, but I was just feeling like, ugh, just something, yeah, things were just gray. Everything was gray, and I was just going through the motions and feeling like crap still. And then I remember I was at my friend's place, and we'd been partying or whatever the night before. And I woke up the next day, and she'd gone somewhere, and I thought, what can I do? I wonder if I could work on a ship or cruise ship or something. So what I did was I sent my a cousin of mine, my cousin's wife, I sent her a message and said, what do you think about working on a cruise ship? Because she works on cruise ships and she has done for many years. And she said, oh, you should give it a go. I think you might enjoy it. I was like, oh, okay. So I went on to the job website, and there was a job for a personal trainer on a cruise ship. And I was like, I'm going to apply. And then within 3 days, they called me for the interview and had interviewed the next week, the following week. And then, yeah, got it. So that's how I ended up going on a cruise ship around the world, was around the world cruise ship for 9 months. And that really allowed me to just get away from Melbourne, because being in Melbourne was reminding me of how I had left, was reminding me of my husband. And I just needed to get away from people's questions of, how can you leave him? And what happened? And what do you mean by emotional abuse? And why did you, all that stuff. I just need to get away. And I did. So that's how I ended up on a cruise ship. I don't know if you were my Facebook friend then, probably not. But I used to post all these, like I posted my journey of around the world. So I had all these albums of the Caribbeans and da 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 da. But it really allowed me to start healing. Being on the water was great. Being in all these different countries and cultures was good as well. and it just brought me back to myself. So
Wow.
good experience. So I only got back last year, August 2019, and then I think I met you later that year.
January. January.
January, yeah, this January. So yeah,
Yeah.
so August 2019 was when I really started getting myself back together. And here
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So from that journey, what would you say was the most profound thing you learned going through that whole experience?
Ah, wow. I don't know if it's profound, but I think I learned to value my voice and to know that it's valid, and also to know what I'm worth as well. Um, I had so many doubts through my relationships and through, the work that I used to do. I used to doubt myself so much. So now it's just like I feel like I'm just in a place where I listen to myself and I respect myself, and my intuition is very strong as well. And I'm just, I suppose, really grateful that I'm so strong and that I got through it, because literally there were times when I could have lost my life. And maybe that sounds exaggerated, but it's actually true. There were times I was going to take my life. I wouldn't even be here anymore. So when I look at that, I think, wow, I'm so grateful to just be here. So for me, when I wake up every day, I'm like, I'm so grateful to be alive. And I mean it. I'm just grateful to be alive and then to do all the other things that I do. Because I was this close to taking my own life, or just dying from drinking too much, or just doing stuff to try and block everything out, you know?
And so what would you tell that girl who like really just couldn't get out the bed, and she had the strength to call the suicide hotline though? But what would you tell that girl who just
Many times.
couldn't get out of bed, who was just like, I want to take my life. Maybe he'll care if I'm not here. Like, what do you tell that girl?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Get out of the bed, girl. Um, I don't know. I think I'll tell that girl that there's always hope, there's always light. And I think one of the biggest things is that when I was down under the bed, like I would go onto YouTube. I would still have the strength to go onto YouTube and maybe try and look for some videos to lift me up. And guess what? I would find interviews just like the one you and I are doing now, of two women talking about, and the other one saying she went through abuse. Then I'd find another blog, or I'd go onto Facebook and I'd read someone's story and I think, okay, maybe if she did it, I can. And that's why I'm doing this interview as well. I'm being so open, because there might even be one woman who's going to watch this and be like, oh, yeah, maybe I can get up too. That's the way I got up. So
Exactly.
I owe that to somebody else, to another woman out there.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. So give us a little explanation of where you are with your practice now. Because I mean, we've pretty much caught on that you're a fitness coach.
Yes. So where am I now? So I run Fitness to a T, and what it is I train women worldwide, and I have online coaching programs. So people can see the exercise programs through an app that I have, that I got designed for my business, and I also do nutrition plans. Also, with Fitness to a T, it's not just about the coaching, but I also have, I would say it's a fitness tree. So I have books, so health and fitness books, because I love writing. And then I'm launching a clothing line as well. So fitness clothing for women, that's going to launch in August. And then I also model. So I love modeling. I've done modeling since I got to Australia. So that's another part of what I do. And I also write for magazines, so different health and fitness magazines in Australia. And then I also run a charity. So the charity is based in Zimbabwe, where I'm from. And it's a cancer charity that looks after poor cancer patients and their families. Because my mom died of cancer in 2010. So I started that back then. So yes, that's a snippet of where I am, I suppose.
I love the way you
Where
take
I'm
a deep
going.
breath with that. Like, yeah, that's
Yes,
what I got
yes,
going on, girl.
just doing what I love and yeah, helping others as I do it.
Yes. So what I take people on a journey of through these interviews is, like I said, people's darkest moments and like where you just give up at. You know what I'm saying? And then how do we get back from that point of just giving up and feeling completely hopeless and empty and get to some kind of feeling of hope, some kind of feeling of optimism.
Mm,
Like just to feel a wee
um,
little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Just a little
yeah,
bit.
definitely. Yeah. How do
Just
you get to feeling that little bit of hope?
yeah, like where if you were giving advice, what would you say to that person who is completely hopeless, completely void?
Mm,
And you know how it is, you turn into a zombie. You're numb. You're not feeling anything.
yeah. Whew, that's a good question because I think it's very personal, but I'll answer from my experience. For me, it was having just a glimmer of hope that life could be better. But the only way I could see that life could be better was by looking at other people. That's the only way I managed to get up, by looking at other people and thinking, hey, but their life is better. Or I was like someone who would literally be Googling motivational people or women who've been through abuse just so I could read their stories, just to see what do they do. So that's how I started getting a glimmer. Once I got the glimmer, then I was like, okay, what can I do? What's an action step that I can take? And for me, the first thing was I needed counseling. I needed support. And that's how I started getting up. And then once I started doing the counseling and realizing that what I was feeling was valid and normal, then I started getting more support. So, doing meditation, for example. I'm someone who's spiritual, so my spiritual practices have definitely helped me. I know not everyone is spiritual, everyone's individual, but yeah, that's helped me as well.
Yes, thank you for saying that because I am a strong believer, and I feel it's just fact that
Mm,
we create our own reality. And a
mm,
lot of people have a problem with that because it's about accountability. Or like, I got into a car accident and the car came out of no damn where. And so how are you going to tell me that that's my fault? But
uh-huh.
it's like, what were you thinking about for the last couple of months? Like, were
Mm,
you in a state of worry, waiting for something to happen? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
You're always a
yeah,
nervous wreck. You always have anxiety. When you get happy, you're kind of like, oh shit, because something is about to happen because I'm too damn
yeah,
happy, and then so something happens.
yeah,
And then you're like, I didn't create that. And
yeah.
so we're noticing a theme with all of these interviews is when a person stops living the lie. The lie is that my life is working. Even though I'm just giving an example. I love to paint and I freaking love to drink coffee, but the people around me say coffee isn't healthy and fuck painting because you can't make no money. You know what I'm saying? So then I deny myself, I tell a lie, and then I
Mhm.
start doing a career that people think, is more suitable for self. And then all these problems start happening because you're defying self. You're not living your truth. And in all of these
Mm,
interviews, especially yours, you talked about going through the motions of the lawyer thing and
mhm.
and even trying different aspects of it, even the human rights. I thought the human rights thing was going to get you. I thought
That's
that
what
was
I thought. That's what I thought
good.
too.
I thought that was going to get you.
I know. Like
And
go for that.
once you really lived your truth, fitness is where it is at, and you help out so many
Mhm.
women and you get so many results. you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
It
so that's
just flows. It's not
it.
even like hard work. It's just like it just flows. I
Hmm.
don't have to strive for it. For law, I had to strive to do it.
You had to fight. You had to what we call work hard.
I had to work hard, exactly.
A lot of people get upset with these millennials because they feel like they're lazy and they're not working. But I feel like they're a product of the generations before them, which is us, which is our
Yes,
parents who we were taught to work hard. And in these careers
yes,
that we couldn't stand and miserable, and the millennials are like, hell no. Like
it's
when you're doing
true.
something you love, it doesn't even feel like work. When you're living
Yes.
your truth, life doesn't feel so freaking hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? So give
Yes.
us your information, your websites, where you can be reached, your app, so that people
Okay.
can freaking get a hold of you, girl.
Yes. So our website is fitnesstoat.com, so com.au. And then Instagram is my first name and the digit one, so Teurai1, Teurai1. And then Facebook Fitness to a T. So with the app is for clients only. So when you sign on to a program, that's when you can access the app. But please feel free to get onto my social media because I always post exercise videos, nutrition videos, and even educational videos as well on simple things like how to use a tape measure or just, a lot of questions that people ask about fitness.
And you're good too, because I even seen the suitcase workout. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yes, yeah. So no excuses.
No
Something
excuses.
for everyone. Yeah.
And so you've got a podcast going on too, right?
Yes, I do. Under the Tree with Tea. So that's on Spotify as well. So you can get that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor. But you can always just Google Under the Tree with Tea and you can have a listen. And I'll also be going into, more in depth in terms of the emotional abuse and relationships, marriage, etc. in the podcast as I go along.
Nice. Well, Miss T, thank you so much for joining us here at You Thrive Every Day and just explaining to people how we thrive from the most darkest moments in our life. We appreciate you coming all the way from Australia. We got to big that up. Okay, Australia
Yay.
is in the house, Zimbabwe.
Yay.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. It was
London in
great.
the house. You've been to London, to Germany. T is
Yes.
representing up in here. She international. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you
Thank
guys,
you.
everybody, for tuning in to our show. We are so thankful for you guys being here, and we will catch you again first and third Tuesdays for the You Thrive Every Day with another great interview. Everyone have a miraculous day. You are loved, and we will talk soon, everybody. Peace out.